Hello and good afternoon here on this beautiful Friday in northern New Jersey, just outside of Manhattan. My name is Martin Cowart, and welcome to Noonday Meditation and Contemplative Prayer Power Hour, where us everyday mystics and contemplatives gather every day at noon, Monday through Saturday, to love and support each other through this pandemic. And today I want to talk a little bit about the power of waking up and the death of our ego. There was a very successful and important looking top producer in a Fortune 500 financial services firm. And that came with all those trophies. I had a wonderful office, beautiful office actually, with a nice window on the 44th floor of a prestigious building in Manhattan overlooking Park Avenue. And that office, there's a reason for those trophies, because they tend to give my ego a sense of importance and superiority to others who were still working in cubicles. I don't know if anybody else has ever been there, but that's what it was like for me. But the big thing about that was this. From the outside looking in, if you came to my office to visit me and you looked at me, you would think you were seeing a highly successful financial planner and wealth manager working for a very successful, and the firm was a great firm. It's not about the firm. This is about me, by the way. The only problem was, on the inside, I was terrified. I was miserable. It seemed that the more successful I became, the louder my imposter syndrome became. And the imposter syndrome is a favorite tool of the ego, let's say, that tells us we're basically a fraud, and that we don't really have what it takes, we're not good enough, and we don't deserve the successes that we have achieved and all the trophies that come with it. So we're in conflict. From the external world, we look like we're successful. Internally, we feel like a fraud. And that's a miserable, miserable way to live. It was for me anyway. And actually it became the voice. Oh, there's somebody saying hello. Who is this? Hey, Ruby, good to see you. I'm glad. I thought you might come join us. We're talking about the death of our ego and the death of the imposter syndrome. That's where this is going to all get connected. So hang on. I think you're going to enjoy this. It's a little bit of my story of being a highly successful producer with a top Fortune 500 producer firm in Manhattan overlooking Park Avenue, and living with what's known as imposter syndrome, which is that belief that we're a fraud. We're not. If anybody, and we feel terrorized because if anybody discovers the truth of our fraudulent self, we don't deserve to be here. We're going to be stripped of all of our trophies and humiliated by the world. And it's an insane way to live, and yet I can tell you there are many, many, many of successful people who are just like me, and that's why I'm telling the story, because it doesn't have to be that way. And but it got worse than that, because the imposter syndrome got so loud and I became so terrorized that my biggest fears were beginning to materialize. I was beginning, the external world is a reflection of our internal world. So I began to create a world of failure and almost leading me to bankruptcy. As a matter of fact, I had an attorney tell me once that he suggested that maybe bankruptcy would be a solution to resolving a lot of my financial problems. And as tempting as that might have been, and it was, because it was a pretty painful place to be at the time, I listened to my spiritual teacher instead. And she suggested a spiritual route, contemplative prayer, as a solution. Now, I've been a contemplative all of my life, but I'll be honest with you, I never wanted to turn over, my ego never wanted to turn over the reins and the control over my bank account to anything, particularly some formless, timeless energy that it could not feel, touch, or imagine. So my ego was hanging on tightly to the reins of control over my finances until it got so miserable, it got so tough that I finally, through meditation and contemplative prayer, went into prayer with an intention to let it go, with her guidance. Just go in and let it go. And do you know, as soon as I did, almost immediately upon surrendering it, my higher self, my true self, my presence came in, and my ego literally died, and all its problems went with it. I was free of the ego and its need to be important, superior, win, all of those things that I had worked so hard to achieve just didn't matter. Now, I don't want to say that, I don't want to give the illusion that all of a sudden there was money in my account and all the sort of things happened. But the fear of bankruptcy and the fear of not enough and the imposter syndrome, that all dissolved, because I realized that it wasn't about the money. I realized that I actually have the keys to the kingdom within me, and you do too. It wasn't that when you realize the truth of who and what we are prosperity, we are abundance, we are successful just by being alive. And within each of us, we all have a dimension of creative power that is enormous. It is infinite, as a matter of fact, which is beyond the comprehension of the human mind. We have an infinite resource of creative energy within us. So when that opens up, when we wake that up and our ego dies, it's like, hallelujah, now I can allow life to live through me, and life becomes an adventure. I'm not trying to find something anymore. I have already found it. I have discovered who I am and the meaning of my life. And the meaning of my life is just to show up with love and gratitude. I don't have to do anything, and you don't either. And that's why we need to all wake up right now. Because I'm certain, I know, because I talk to people and people talk to me, and I'm in communication. I'm certain. I watch some news. I don't watch a lot of it. But I can tell by the level of drama that is constantly being drummed up in the world right now, based on fear of tomorrow, fear of the virus, fear of the presidency, and the fear of this and the fear of that, and the drama of this and the drama of that. It is intense for all of us. That's why we come here together, because we're looking for a different solution. A wise man said once, you cannot resolve a problem at the same level of consciousness or the same level of thinking that created the problem, the ego. We have to transcend the ego and rise up into a higher level of consciousness, the spiritual realm, unconditional love, truth, joy, prosperity, to tap into that power. And when we do, there is nothing we can't accomplish, including right now, this big crisis that we're currently living in is so painful. We need to get still and get quiet and listen to the voice of the wise woman within all of us and share our wisdom and our truth with the world so others can get out of the trap of the drama. Because people are trapped right now in a drama, and they need the love and the support of those who have gotten out, who have gotten free. And that's why we're here. That's why I encourage you to come here. I don't know where you are on your journey. I'd love to know. You can give me a call. I'd love to have a conversation with you about where you are on your journey and share where I am on mine and see how we can love and support each other. That's why we're here, to love and support each other on where we are in this journey of creating what I call a new earth. Because I can say this, that all of us foundationally, the true self is love. And the love wants nothing more than to share love. Love for ourselves and love for God, love for the world. And if we create a new earth out of the truth of our love and prosperity and our joy for life itself, just imagine the economic structures and the culture and the economic and cultural and societal we can create. It's not so much going to be about having to create all these new rules. Somebody said when the Democrats take over the Senate, it's going to be just tons of regulatory things, and we're not going to be able to make any money. Well, that's a pretty egoic perception of the world. And I can see how that might be, because that might have been the past. But this is my thinking. This is my thinking about what it's not going to be about regulation. It's not just the spiritual people that are waking up. Everybody's waking up. I'm part of something right now with three of the top wealthiest financial influencers in the world. Tony Robbins, Russell Brunson, and I can't think of the other guy's name. DeGrazia. He's something I just gotten familiar with. But these are some of the top financial influencers, and they are part of a movement. They are leading a movement by sharing all of their wealth, all of their knowledge over the years so others can share theirs too. And they're doing it for free. I mean, who would have ever thought that those top people, you have to pay thousands of dollars to go to their courses and go to their seminars. They're doing it all online for free because they know we all need to be able to bring our gifts we all need to get free of the ego. And they know we all have something important to contribute to the betterment of our world. And they're providing their wisdom and their knowledge on how we best go about doing that. And there is a gigantic, exciting movement toward a new earth. It's happening now. It's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. It's happening right now, and you're part of it. And I'm part of it. And it's a very, very exciting way to live, a very exciting way to be. When we just allow presence to come up in the moment, we realize we are part of something so big, so magnificent, so creative, so loving, so miraculous, that our ego literally dies and all the problems it brought with it literally dissolve. And then we begin to create from a place of truth. Our own lives and the lives of others. Because we realize when we get into that moment, we are called to share our new earth, our new reality with the world. Because the new world becomes a reflection of our inner world. So if our inner world is an inner world of love, joy, and prosperity, the external world we live in will become that reflection. Interesting thing just happened to me over the summer. I am creating a course. It's called Practicing the Art of Prosperity, the key to living your life of love. It's Practicing the Art of Being Present, your keys to living a life of love, joy, and prosperity. And the interesting thing about this is this. I started this project early in the summer with the intention to teach my prosperity clients how to meditate. It's going to be a simple little webinar, and I just put it together and I'd send it out. Well, it took on a life of its own, because as I began to create the content that I was going to teach, which was my own practice began to evolve and mature as well. So as I was doing it, I was practicing it. And as I was practicing, it was evolving and growing. And I went through a very transformational experience myself this summer. And I will say today that as a result of me practicing what I am going to be, that I'm now trying to teach to you, I live in most of the time with presence. And that's an exciting way to live. And I am creating a life of love, joy, and prosperity because that's how I feel inside. And that's the world I see out there. And that's why I'm here to share it with you. Now my challenge is this: can I master the skills to teach it so you get the transformational experience that I had? I hope so. That is my personal commitment, I would say, to the world, is to be able to master the teaching of what I've learned about how to solve financial problems and create wealth using spiritual truth and wisdom to you and to others, wherever they are on their journey. And it's very exciting. Let's see what Ruby has to say. I want to be in on that. You are in on that. I think I sent you a sneak peek of that, Ruby. I think I sent you an email with a sneak peek of those 2 webinars to take a look at and give me some feedback. So if I didn't, let me know and I will send that to you because I would love to. I think they would be very helpful for you. I hope they are. I hope that they will be as transformational for you as they were for me. I had someone call me today and say how much she and her husband had both watched them and they were going to begin to go on this 90-day journey that I'm suggesting in this practice. So yeah, I would highly recommend that I'd be happy to send them to you. Right now they're in the sort of development stage. I'd like to eventually get it to something that I'm actually going to market and sell. But I want to get it to the place where it really actually does create value and the transformation that we're looking for. So thank you for joining me and thank you for asking about that. Because you know what, it worked. It worked on me anyway. Oh God. I want to read a little bit today from Richard Rohr. Richard Rohr is a Franciscan brother. Let's see, what did you say? Send it. Okay, I'll send it again. I'll send it again today. I'll be happy to. No problem. Be my pleasure to send it to you again today. It would be my absolute pleasure. I tell you what, I send it to you. If you'll give me some feedback, how about that? We'll talk later about that. But yes, I'm delighted you want to do it. True self and separate self. This is written by. This comes from Richard Rohr. Richard Rohr is a Franciscan brother and a Roman Catholic priest, and he heads up what's called the Center of Action and Contemplation in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And every night he puts out a meditation reading, and they have been so supportive to me during this pandemic, and you're welcome. I'm happy to do it. He's been so happy. It's been so this has been very supportive, and as a matter of fact, it was this reading that influenced my talk today. And so let's see if we can connect the dots between what I just said and what he wrote. He calls trusting a deeper liveness. I believe a regular practice of centering prayer is one of the most effective tools we have for discovering our true selves. Sitting in silence, we become adept at compassionately observing our separate self at work as it tries to maintain control of the inner narrative. Ultimately, however, With our genuine intention and attention, our true self is revealed, present to the presence of God. CAC faculty member, the Reverend Cynthia Bourgeau, describes how this happens. And this is important because this is the Cynthia Bourgeau is one of my teachers, and she teaches centering prayer, and that is the way I pray. And I think this is some really good spiritual wisdom and truth that will help you on your journey toward a contemplative life to be able to solve financial problems and create wealth. She says this: when we enter into meditation or contemplative prayer, it is like a mini death, at least from the perspective of the ego. We let go of our self-talk, our interior dialogue, our fears, our wants, our needs, our preferences, daydreams, and fantasies. We simply entrust ourselves to a deeper aliveness, gently pulling the plug on that tendency of the mind to want to check in with itself all the time. In this sense, meditation and contemplative prayer is a mini rehearsal for the hour of our own death, in which the same thing will happen. There comes a moment when the ego is no longer able to hold us together, and our identity is cast to the mercy of being itself. Let me read that again. There comes a moment when the ego is no longer able to hold us together, and our identity is cast to the mercy of being itself. This is the existential experience of losing one's life. Just as in meditation and contemplative prayer, we participate in the death of Christ, we also participate in his resurrection. For 20 minutes, we, our ego or separate self, have been holding ourselves in life, and yet life remains. Oh, read that again. It was kind of a strange, right? For 20 minutes, we have not been holding ourselves in light, and yet life remains. We put the ego aside, if you will. We let go of the separate self, if you will. We put it aside and come out the other side, and guess what? We're still alive. All that effort that the ego tried to do, nothing. We're actually more powerful. Okay, I lost my place here. And yet life remains. Something has held us and carried us through these 20 minutes of contemplative prayer. Something has held us and carried us through this prayer, through this meditation that was beyond the ego's control and manipulation. And this same something we gradually come to trust will hold and carry us at the hour of our death. To know this, to really know this, is the beginning of a resurrection life. Another way of saying, as we begin not to fear death, we begin not to fear life. Because there's nothing to fear. Virtually all the great spiritual traditions of the world share the conviction that humanity is the victim of a tragic case of mistaken identity. In my case, imposter syndrome. Virtually all the great spiritual traditions of the world share the conviction that humanity is the victim of a tragic case of mistaken identity. That is certainly true for the world right now. The toxic world we have created comes from the mistaken from a tragic, very tragic case of mistaken identity. We have all participated in the creation of this toxic world through a mistaken identification with our egos. There is a self, little self, and a self, a big self. And our fatal mistake lies in confusing the two. The egoic self is in virtually every spiritual tradition immediately dispatched to the realm of the illusionary or at best transitory. It is the imposter who claims to be the whole. The imposter, this is really important because I really believe this is true for me, and I think it's true for everybody that I work with. The imposter can become a good servant, but it is a dangerous master. Awakening, which in Jesus' teaching really boils down to the capacity to perceive and act in accordance with the higher laws of the kingdom of heaven, is a matter of piercing through the charade of the smaller self to develop a stable connection with the greater self. Becoming intimate with our spiritual identity, the sense of selfhood carried in our spiritual awareness. And I'm going to further say that sense of selfhood is the Godhead in our spiritual awareness. Through meditation and centering prayer, it gradually becomes ingrained in us that losing one's life, regardless of the action that may ultimately be required of us in the outer world, entails first and foremost a passage from our ordinary awareness to our spiritual one. Because only at this deeper level of non-fear-based holistic perception will we be able to understand what is actually required of us. I'll read that again. Through meditation, like centering prayer, it gradually becomes ingrained in us that losing one's life, regardless of the action that may ultimately be required of us in the outer world, entails first and foremost a passage from our ordinary awareness to our spiritual one. Because only as this deeper level of non-fear-based holistic perception will we be able to understand what is actually required of us. Will we actually understand the meaning and purpose of our lives? Excuse me. How is that? This is why I teach people how to use spiritual principles and rely on spiritual truth and wisdom to solve financial problems and create wealth. And it's a very fulfilling and exciting thing to be doing. And I love doing it. This is one of the ways I do it. So let's spend a few minutes meditating. Now, I'm going to say this, I say it every day, every time I do this. If you've enjoyed listening to me, great. I'm glad I got to entertain you a little bit and give you some truth. But I want to encourage you not to leave now. Because your ego is like, I don't want to be bored for 20 minutes. I don't want to sit here for 20 minutes and get still. Of course not. That's the last thing your ego wants to do. Because contemplative prayer is going to be the death of its ego. That is how we move into the space, because when presence comes up, ego has gone, and so have the problems that it brought with it. So it's not about what I'm saying. I'm just doing the best I can to impart my wisdom that I've learned with you. But I'm going to suggest now that you take some time, give yourself 20 minutes, and to tell the ego to be quiet for a few minutes. Thank it for all its work. Don't be ugly. Like I say, it can become a great servant, but it's not a very good master. So ask it to be still and surrender your problems, surrender your beliefs and your opinions about the world, and let's go deep inside ourselves. So let me set the timer for 20 minutes. And we'll get started. 20 minutes, you're going to hear 3 bells, interval bells in the middle, and those are intended to kind of wake you up from a trance. Sometimes we think we're having this great meditation. We're not. We have gone down a rabbit hole into a very, very deep thought. And the interval bell is there to wake us up from that deep thought. So you're going to hear 3 of those. So before we get started, raise your arms and just hold them for a second in the air. And get still. And feel. Don't think about raising your arms. Feel your life energy in your arms. That's how close God is. What you are feeling in your arms and in your legs is awareness itself, is the spark of life. It is feeling them through your body. And that's as far as we have to go. We're here. We're home. And let's just fall into that. Get still. Still the mind. Ask the mind. Invite the mind to get still. And let go of every thought, every belief, every opinion, every judgment, every story about yourself, about God, about me, about the COVID-19 virus, about politics. Let them go. That is the practice of centering prayer. Thought comes up, let it go. Thought comes up, let it go. Thought comes up, let it go. And listen for the silence before and after it goes. Listen into the silence between my words. Begin a practice of being present by looking at the spaces between the objects. That little space before you speak. You'll get to know presence if you just listen. Be still and know that I am God. Not me, Martin. I am God. I am timeless, formless, unconditional, creative love energy. I am love and life. Allow the sound of the bell and the sound of my voice to wake you up and reset. Let go. Surrender and be still and listen. Wow, welcome back. How was your journey? Did you hear the voice of the wise woman? Were you able to let go of a few thoughts? Have experienced a little bit of presence? It's a practice. It's a practice. It's like anything else. The more you do it, the more she'll appear. So thank you for joining me today. And Ruby, I will send you, or anybody else that wants it. As a matter of fact, I'm happy to share it with you. You just send me a message in my Facebook Messenger with your email address. I'll be more than happy to send you out a copy of my latest webinar, my latest video course on practicing the art of being present. Your keys to living a life of love, joy, and prosperity. The only thing I'm going to ask is, because I'm developing this, and you're getting a sneak peek, a preview, if you will. If you would review it and give me your thoughts about it. What if does it inspire you to want to do the work? Is the teaching clear? Do you understand it? Is it again? Is it inspiring and motivating to make you want to take action? Because I'm gonna get better. This is the first one out, and I will get better and better as I've done, as we all do. The more you practice something, the better you get at it. That's called mastery. So I'd be happy to share it with anybody that'd like to have it, and I would appreciate your feedback on it if you get it. So, having said all that, I'm going to end, and I will see and talk to you later. May love and prosperity prevail. Thank you so much for being here.